Hi everyone, welcome to Gmat Club session. My name is Shimri Winters, and today we're going to talk all about Insead. So if you're on a different session, if you were thinking about a session about chocolate chip cookies or something like that, sorry, wrong session for you. Today we're going to talk about Insead, mainly about the MBA program, but generally about Insead Business School. Just a bit about me. My name is Shimri Winters. I work for Ringo MBA Admissions Consulting. I'm a London Business School alumnus. There's a nice video on GMAT Club, London Business School versus Insead. You can also check that out. But the reason I know quite a lot about Insead is, first of all, I also applied and got into Insead. The second reason is most of our or a lot of our candidates that register for top MBAs in Europe or in the world register both to London and Insead. This is one of our most popular schools. A bit about Ringo. This is my only marketing slide in this whole hour-and-a-half presentation. We're very good. We help candidates with chances assessment and obviously fitting the schools that are right for them. And then we help them with the actual applications, with the whole project planning, and with the entire applications, and many, many other things. Check us out on aringo.com. You can see why we're presenting about Insead. Insead's probably one of the schools where our success rates were the highest in the last 5 years, with between 75 and 80% success rate in the last 3 or 4 years. Again, you can check our statistics online. That's it. That was my marketing slide. So this is a live YouTube session. If you're watching it live, you can actually ask questions on the comment in YouTube on the right side, and I will try and answer them during the presentation, and definitely leave a lot of room in the end to answer all of your questions. Just a bit about this presentation. It's a very long one. It will probably take an hour and a half. The first 20-25 minutes of the presentation will be very general about Insead. Will be for people who don't know the school, or have heard the word Insead, but don't know exactly what Insead is. Where is it? What do you study? Why is it a good place to study? Is it a good place to study? What are the disadvantages in studying at Insead? Not many. So that's the first part of the presentation. And again, if you feel you know everything about Insead, feel free to, if this is a live session, to come back in 25 minutes. Get yourself a coffee, or mute it for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and come back for the second part of the presentation, which is discussing the actual Insead MBA application. And that will be longer. We'll go into every single part of the Insead application, as you can see, resume, essays, and recommendations. If you're only thinking of applying in 3 or 4 years to Insead and you just wanted a general feeling of the school, again, you can drop off in 25-30 minutes. Okay, those were the disclaimers about who should drop off when. I hope some of you will actually stay because there's a lot of information. So let's get going and let's talk a bit more about Insead. So whether you look at the Financial Times MBA ranking, or you look at the US News, or what's this one? I can't even remember. Bloomberg, or The Economist, or Forbes, or QS, or whatever ranking you look at, Insead is one of the best schools in the world. Okay, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, I think it's been ranked number 1 in 4 out of the last 5 years on the Financial Times MBA ranking. This is global business school ranking. If you look at Forbes, it's ranked number 2 right now. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's ranked 4, 5, 1, or 2. It's one of the best schools in the world. I think there's no doubt about that. What do these rankings mean? Not much. Again, there isn't a big difference if it's ranked 2 or 3. It just means it's one of the top schools in the world, maybe the best by some of the rankings. So just a bit of numbers, stats, information. Insead's been going on for 5 decades now. Okay, so it's not a new school, and a lot of you may not have heard about Insead in the same comparison you've heard of big US schools. Okay, and not just Harvard. Let's take UCLA or Cornell or Columbia. The reason is Insead until a few years ago was only still only teaches business, and is only teaching masters. It doesn't teach a BA in psychology, and it doesn't teach a PhD in geography. So it's a much smaller school than some of the big US schools. And that's why a lot of people have heard of very big schools, but haven't heard of London Business School or Insead for this matter. But still, it's a very good school, been going on for a long time. It's not new. There's 2 intakes. This is very unique for this school. There aren't many schools. There are a few others, but there aren't many schools who offer 2 intakes a year. And you can either start your studies in January or start your studies in September. I'll just mention, let's finish with this, the difference between the two. In both cases, the course is 10 months. The difference is if you start in January, you actually, at the end of the course, you do another 2 months of an internship. If you start in September, you do not. So the January the January intake includes an internship, and the September intake does not include an internship. There's no specific specialization of the school. A lot of people tell me, oh, Ncaa, it's just consulting. No, it's not just consulting. There's also entrepreneurship, also marketing, also finance, also real estate. Whatever specialization you're thinking about that's to do with business, Ncaa have it. And I'll show you how the elective system works. The tuition, it's very expensive, nearly 90,000 euros. The class is very big, over 1,000 people. The average salary is very, very difficult to find. I found like 6 different sources with different numbers. I think it's fair to say 6 digits. And if the dollar euro moves, dollar pound moves, who knows what's happening with COVID right now and how that will affect foreign currencies. Again, the salary can go up or down, but still very high salaries. And I'll show you recruiters, etc. People come from 85 nationalities, very, very, very international school, one of the most international schools in the world. And you can actually see the logo at the bottom, the business school of the world. They like that connotation. Gmat, Average and Age, you can see, pretty standard for a top school, 710. Again, very similar, for example, to London Business School or a top school like that. Female versus male, again, better than previous years, still not so brilliant. And I know Insead are looking to bump up the numbers of the female students. Prior years of experience, this is something very important, so I'll touch now. Insead define if you have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, 8 years. Obviously, below 3 is starting to look a bit suspicious. So you would have to be very, very extraordinary if you're that young. Again, in terms of years of experience. And same goes on the other way. A lot of candidates come to me with 11, 12, 13, 14, 18 years of experience. And I try to explain to them, listen, I don't think this course is what you're looking for. And I know for sure that you are not what the school is looking for. Okay, it's very rare that the school will accept a candidate with more than 12 years of experience. So that, again, I don't think that's written anywhere, but you can put that as kind of a red flag. If you have more than 10, orange. If you have more than 12 years of experience, you probably should be looking at some kind of senior executive MBA or full-time MBA program for senior candidates. But this is something that Insead doesn't offer. It does offer a part-time executive MBA, but that's something else. How does the curriculum look? So we said it's like 10 months. It's very, very quick. Okay. And at the beginning, there's mainly core courses. Okay. I think that makes sense. So there's mainly core courses. And you can see here the list. I'm not going to go through them, but I think we can call them a strong business foundation and lots of business fundamentals like accounting and marketing and entrepreneurship and some soft skills as well, how to present yourself and all different things like that. Once we progress with the course, and I think you can see here in period 3, there's already 3.5 electives, and in period 4, there's 4 electives. So here you can start choosing whichever electives you want. And the electives can be entrepreneurship, marketing, finance, consulting, whichever direction you're interested, there's electives in that kind of topic. So there's many, many electives to choose from. Okay, and again, I'm just giving you taste here. Obviously, you can dig into this stuff, watch this presentation a bit slower, or just go into Insead website. There's a lot of material about each course, etc. I'm just trying to give you bits and bobs here about Insead as a whole. So is Insead right for me? Wait, this is my coffee. SIP. I need to remember every 3 slides. So unlike the US schools where most of the MBA degrees are 2 years, this program is very, very quick. Okay, so things go by very quickly, and you have to keep that in mind. It's high pace, high pressure. On the other hand, there's a high return of investment because you only lose, or you're only out of the job market for 1 year. Obviously, there's an amazing brand globally. There's a very, very good use of the 2 campuses in Singapore and in France. And most of the candidates study in both of them ultimately. There's also a campus in the UAE, but that's more for executive MBA. There's a lot of electives to choose from. So like I said in the previous slide, you can just choose from everything. Lots of student clubs, and you can really find your own thing. So we have one of our candidates who went to study at Insead last year, and I told him, like, which electives did you take? You must have taken a lot of finance. He said, no, I just didn't want the finance. I said, oh, you must have taken a lot of marketing. He said, no, this guy only took entrepreneurship, and he took very strange ones, like all different strategic innovation ones and things like that. He didn't want the core finance ones. So this is what he wanted to do. So again, you can decide which electives you want and kind of create your own specialization. Ncaa has a very strong alumni body in all over the world with tens of thousands of alumni. And wherever you are, there's Ncaa alumni in that city. So it's a great network after your MBA. And that's it. And like we said, some of the downsides or some of the considerations you should consider is it's very, very fast paced. Less time for everything, less time to look for jobs, less time to network, less time to study, less time for yourself to think what you want to do in 20 years. So it has to be suitable for someone like that. And you have to have very clear goals, what you want to do at the end of the MBA, because you don't have 2 years to start thinking about this entire process. One last thing that I wanted to mention is the US. I will show you in the next slides where Ncaa alumni work today, but I can already tell you that if your dream is to work in the US, go and study in the US. And a lot of candidates tell me, oh, well, in the US, maybe I'll compromise and go for I don't know, B school kind of thing, or, I'll have to, it won't be my top school and I'll have to compromise. And I say, but it will be in the US. So don't go to Kentucky State Community College. But even if you go to a school which is ranked 30 or 40 or 50 in the US and it's where you want to live during the degree and after the degree, definitely go and study in the US. But if you're not sure about that, you might want to live afterwards in Asia or in Europe, and obviously work for a global company, Ncaa can definitely be the school for you because it's more multicultural, multi-international than any of the other US programs that you'll find. Okay, just a bit more about, again, we have another 5 minutes or 10 minutes about Ncaa, some general comments. The methodology is kind of a study, of a case. In every class, you use case method, and there's a case at the beginning which you have to kind of read before, and you don't just open page number 33 in book number 4. You actually learn about how does EasyJet price their tickets, okay? Or how was the Olympics bid? Which marketing methods were used to win the Paris Olympics? Okay, so that kind of stuff, that's a case method. Obviously, there's also different teaching methods, a lot of hands-on teaching methods. The classes are very loud. There's a lot of exchange of comments and exchange of views between the different students. And like we said, it's a very diverse group of students. Lots of clubs, lots of fun. If people are going with partners, there's a lot of support for partners. One of my best friends, she went together as a partner of an Ncaa student, and I think she did in his degree more than him. She participated in some clubs. She ran some of the partner clubs. She ran lots of the activities, and she found a job at McKinsey at the end of his MBA. Again, she didn't do the MBA. So a lot of A lot of partners really enjoy going to Insead. Either you go to France and you have a bit of a quiet time, or you go to Singapore and you can obviously enjoy, the great city. So there's different opportunities for partners. In terms of careers, the school really wants you to find a good job at the end. I don't know how to express this differently. Finding the students' jobs and finding them good jobs and good salaries is around 40% of all those rankings I showed you at the beginning. So the school's career services really want to make, they'll go out and beyond to find you a job. And there's a lot of on-campus recruiting. That means at the end of your MBA, or actually at the middle, you don't need to open LinkedIn and start sending your CVs. There's a lot of on-campus recruitment. Where do the alumni work? Well, there's also lots of stats about this on various websites. I think I actually just took this from LinkedIn, but remember, this means it's going a lot of years back and not necessarily what's happening this specific year. So still, there are a lot of consultants. There's no way to hide this. There are a lot of consultants at the end of which go to consulting at the end of their Ncaa MBAs. And financial sector, this is also the kind of the second biggest sector historically. The sector that's growing and growing is obviously tech. So I mean, it's no surprise 30 years ago, maybe this was a very small sector for MBAs, but today it's a growing sector with companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, which are actively recruiting MBAs, plus smaller companies and VCs, etc. So I assume that the tech will keep growing, and consulting will probably diminish a bit and go smaller. If we look specifically what they do in these companies, again, it varies. Obviously consulting is usually consultants as a first prior MBA job, a short-term prior MBA job. But a lot of the candidates, 9%, went into leadership programs. And this can be a management rotation leadership program at a big company like General Electric or Burger King or Hilton Hotels. Okay, so it's a big company that want to recruit leaders. Okay, what are the top recruiters? And again, this is if I look at LinkedIn, and this can change in next year's. So McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group and Bain are still very big recruiters. I think you can also see here the Amazon and Google and Apple. Okay, and you can also see here some just like finance companies like Goldman Sachs or MasterCard. But you can also just see different kind of industry companies. Okay, like the Restaurant Brands International. Okay, like an industry. They just want, or Shopee, they just want to recruit managers. Okay, we're nearly at the end. Aha! We are at the end of how do I get into Ncaa, and at the beginning of how do I get into Ncaa. So whoever's only planning to apply in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, again, you can drop now. Now we're starting to talk about how to get into Ncaa, and I'm going to dissect the Ncaa application and hopefully answer some of your questions at the end. So this is an interactive session. And my first question of the day is, if I look at all these applications, you can write down the answer if you want, which is the longest MBA application in the world that I know, at least, or maybe the top MBAs. I don't know more than the top 100. So if I look at Harvard or Kellogg or UCLA, which is the longest application? I'm drinking my coffee. You need to answer on the chat. Yes, you can answer. You can say Insead, you can say UCLA, you can say Cambridge, London, Kellogg, Harvard. Which do you think is the longest? There's someone quite smart on the chat saying no wonder. It has to be Insead. Well, okay, so it's fine. Again, whoever hasn't done their research, etc. I'll start giving you a bit of information. London Business School. There is one essay to submit, one recommendation. That's it. You're done. One essay, one recommendation. Harvard Business School, one essay, two recommendations. Okay, it's a bit longer. Kellogg, if I remember correctly, three essays. Wow, much longer. Two recommendations. Okay, I'm not going to go into everything. Insead, 7 mandatory essays. Not 1, not 2, 7 mandatory essays. An essay is long, okay? Hundreds of words per essay. No, much longer than Booth, but nice. So Ncaa is the longest application, okay? And let's look at the application itself. If we look at the prerequisites, okay, who can apply to Ncaa? So we said, first of all, this is usually you need to have at least 2, preferably at least 3 years of work experience. And we said if you're above 12, that's a bit of an issue. So usually between 3 to 12 years of experience, that's kind of an unwritten prerequisite for now. And then if your undergraduate degree is not in English, or if you don't live in an English speaking country, you'll need to do an English exam and TOEFL or Ielts. That's fine. It's not a very difficult exam if you know English, so that's okay. You do need the Gmat or the GRE. Are there any Gmat waivers for Insead full-time MBA? No. But I heard there's a Gmat waiver? No. So I've gotten at least 50 calls in the last year of people telling me they've read somewhere there's a Gmat waiver on Insead full-time MBA. The answer is there isn't. Okay, there was last time a bit of a delay. You could have submitted your Gmat a bit later before the actual deadline. That's not happening this year, and there's no need. You need a Gmat or a GRE. Ncaa is indifferent. Whichever score you can score a higher score, go for that test, but you need one of those. You need to register, and you need to pay 250 euros. And undergraduate, interestingly enough, I have about 2 or 3 candidates each year that get into Insead without an undergraduate degree. Okay, just to be honest, it's harder to get into Insead without an undergraduate degree. So you would have to be a fantastic candidate, and even then, you know, you would have to have a fantastic GMAT, and even then, it might be a bit of luck and a bit of art of how to get into Insead without an undergraduate degree. Okay, let's say. Can you already see the questions, but I'll have to answer them later. Let's say, but keep asking questions, we'll get there. Let's say you have all these prerequisites. Can you now apply to Insead? What do you need to do? So we already said there's 7 mandatory essays. There's actually 2 optional ones, which you usually don't need to do if you already have the 7. You'll need your resume, that makes sense. And you need 2 letters of recommendation, and there's a bit of an online application. That's the short part. Okay, let's go into everything. Okay, so I'm going to dissect all the different things that we need to apply. Let's just think what Ncaa are looking for. Okay, so they're definitely looking at your profession, at your academic capacity. Okay, academic capacity means your GMAT or GRE and your undergraduate degree. GMAT really counts, and it's probably around 25 to 30% of your 100% candidacy. Okay, so it's a very, very big chunk, where your undergraduate degree can be around 10%. Okay, so percent or points out of 100, okay? So academics are very important, and you can see how important the GRE or GMAT is. We said before, Insead has a 711 points on average GMAT. If you come from a very competitive background, okay? If you come from a big country where there's a lot of candidates, and you're a male, and you're an engineer, for example, that's not very special, okay? And then how do you overcome something like that? Well, you write very good applications, but you also probably need a higher than average GMAT. On the other hand, again, if you come from an underrepresented country and you're a female, for example, and you work in an industry which is very special, okay, you do energy from clouds. That's very special. In a startup that makes energy from clouds, then maybe a GMAT below the average is okay. And you could probably get into Insead with a 700 or 690. Last year, I had a 620 that got into Insead, a male. I had a 640 female that got into Insead, several 660s. So it's doable. But again, these were very special, very strong candidates, just to be honest. If we look at the other factors, I'm going now anti-clockwise. Leadership is very, very important to the school. And not everybody leads people. Not everybody has management in their current job. And that's okay. So let's take, for example, lawyers. They don't always manage people, even after 10 years of working in a big law office. Accountants don't always manage people, and this is fine. But again, the Ncaa would like to see your leadership potential, and this can come in different examples, which I'll show later. And hopefully you do have something. If you don't, if you've never led anyone, never managed anyone, maybe some kind of ownership of some kind of project or something like that. For Ncaa, unlike a lot of the US schools, for example, international motivation and prospect, however you call it, that's very important. And again, I'll show you this in the CV and in the essays. And not everybody relocated to another country for 3 years and worked at the Google Germany headquarters for 2 years, right? I mean, a lot of people don't even leave their country. Still, Insead are really worried. They want, you're going to have to work with people from 80 other countries in your class. They want to make sure that you can work with people from 80 other countries. And even if you haven't left your country, but you worked with some kind of client from abroad or some kind of team from abroad, or even if you traveled and you were in different countries, just for leisure, that's fine. Okay, but Insead really are looking for that. If you don't have that, yeah, that's an issue. All these things, if you're missing them, it's an issue. You can overcome them with obviously over showing the other factors, but Insead will look for that. And the last one is also very, very important. A lot of times people forget about it, which is Insead are looking for people who can add value to the class. Adding value from your professional experience, from your hobbies, from your community experience, from your life experience. But if you're just a very, very boring person, maybe you've worked somewhere and you're amazing in one very specific thing, that might not be enough, because Ncaa, the classes are a live discussion where people tell, students tell other students from their experiences. Alumni come to the campus, they're in contact, on a very frequent basis with students. So Ncaa are looking for people who want to contribute to the class, to the community, to the school. Of course, how do you show these things, etc.? Well, Ncaa are looking, at your professional experience, and they want to see excellence. They want to see that you really want Ncaa. Okay, I put here school interest on the left. Yes, they really want to see that you want Ncaa and you're not copying your London Business School or Oxford essays into Ncaa. They want to see what your vision is. Vision means, what are your short-term, long-term career goals? Why do you want the MBA? Where do you see yourself in the future? And the broad horizons is also very important. Like I said, they don't want someone boring. I always say, don't be a dry cookie. If all you care about is academics and work experience, that's not enough. They want to see kind of a person, interesting person who can get along in campus with the rest of the community. Okay. This is, I think, the last general slide about their process. The process is very, very similar to other business schools. You have to get all the factors we discussed before, right? The 7 essays, the CV, the 2 recommendations, your Gmat, you have to pay 250 euros. And what do? You submit your application. Okay, once you submit the application, Ncaa have another little step. It's not a big one. I think you have 48 hours to complete a video interview. It's a very short process. You get 2 questions. You know one of them in advance. You have 1 minute to, I can't remember, 45 seconds to think of the answer and 1 minute to answer or something like that. It's a very short process, but it just comes to show to the school that on the essays you may have thought a lot and worked, for hours or days on the essays, and now they just want to ask you 1 or 2 questions for spontaneous to see how can you answer them and can you make up a good answer, without thinking too much. Usually the answer doesn't matter so much. It's more of your line of thought and just to see that you can make sense to a question that you didn't prepare in advance. So once you do the video interview, now you wait. It depends which round, etc. But the waiting can be 4 to 7 weeks, something like that, till you get the answer. Have you been selected for an interview or not? If you have, Ncaa, because they like doing everything longer, have 2 interviews. Most of the other MBA programs have 1. Both interviews are usually done with alumni, usually alumni from your country. But again, now with COVID, it's all changed. And because a lot of the interviews have moved to Zoom, you can get alumni from all over the world. And then once you've been interviewed, you need to wait a bit. and then there's a decision time. So it's very similar to other schools, again, maybe with that little video interview component, which is also more and more popular. Okay, so now is actually my favorite part. It's going to get interactive in 2 minutes, so get ready. And we can talk a bit about the Insead resume. So I usually like to cut the resume into a couple of sections, right? Academics and professional and extracurricular or something like that. So let's start with the professional section in your resume, okay? Some basics which are very, very different than a regular resume. So I was a programmer after my undergraduate degree in computer science. And I think, I haven't checked, but I think my resume probably said programmer, knows to program in C++, worked in Java 2 years. Okay, makes sense. That's what a programmer does. But an Insead resume or business school resume is different. First of all, you need to explain who your company is and what the company does. Even if you work for Google, Amazon, and especially if you work for a company that not everybody recognizes the brand, it's very important to include the company description, and you really need to describe the business aspects of the company. For example, I work for a startup no one's heard of, a Ringo startup. I'll show you an example soon. And the startup is, we have 200 Fortune 500 clients. We sell $200 billion a year. Very good startup. And and we have 1,000 employees in 50 offices. Okay, so that's my company description. I explain kind of not what we do on a daily basis, but kind of some of the stats of the company. And then obviously I want to talk about responsibilities. So if you remember, I used to be a programmer and I probably said no C++, but in my Insead CV or resume, I probably said led a project with 2 people, worked on a project with Vodafone worth $20 million. So you want to show your responsibilities. Obviously, if they're impressive, that would be great. If you received any honors, if you were best in something, that's very, very important to show. Because remember, the schools need to compare, and Ncaa need to compare you versus a lawyer, versus an accountant, versus a programmer, versus someone from this country and someone from that country. Very hard to compare, but at least they want to make sure that in your team, in your group, you were fast-tracked, you're the best, you got awards, etc. Don't forget to connect every single aspect of your application. So the resume should be somehow connected to your YMBA, should be connected to your goals. And for example, if you're a waiter in a restaurant and your goal is to be an investment banker, that's something's wrong there. But if you're a waiter in a restaurant and your goal is to work in finance, at least you should have some kind of finance bullets. Okay, was in charge of the P&L of the restaurant. Okay, that's some kind of connection. And obviously focus on your accomplishments, a lot of times with numbers. And here's a nice example. Okay, so a lawyer dealing with real estate, that's a programmer dealing with C++. That's not good for Ncaa. But look how many achievements he put in one sentence. Head of the biggest law firm. So that already means, he was in a good law firm in Germany, okay, because he wanted to explain which country, if that was maybe a different country than where he was born. Led a team of 4, fantastic, leadership, and in charge of a huge project. Okay, so that shows lots of numbers, achievements in one bullet. If we continue into your academics, this is very important. And if you remember in that pie chart I showed before, the school wants to make sure that you can be involved, that you can contribute to the fellow students and to the community. So if you did anything which was beyond studies, mention it. If you did an exchange, fantastic. If you were head of student union, great. If you volunteered, fantastic. If you were a teacher assistant, amazing. So anything that you did beyond academics, beyond studying, mention it. Now, of course, if you did something well during your academics, like some kind of merit, some kind of top 5% in class, or your GPA was very special, mention all that, of course. And the extracurricular activities are very, very important. Let me start with the hobbies. Remember, Insead and the interviewer doesn't want a dry cookie. They don't want someone who only talks about school and only talks about professional achievements and doesn't have anything else. Okay, because you might pass the first stage, you won't pass the interview this way. Hobbies can help. If you volunteer somewhere, That can show who you are. This can also supplement for things you don't have. For example, leadership initiatives, which you did in your spare time. For example, in national activities, okay? I went, I backpacked South America for 6 months. That's quite amazing, and that's an amazing international experience, although it wasn't a professional one. Okay, so very long stuff, okay? It's time for a bit of interaction. I hope you're all ready. So let me show you a little CV, but I want you to start watching out for some mistakes in these CVs. So here's an example. Okay, this is a good example. Don't look for the mistakes because it's actually good. And it shows here my CV. It's not really mine. And it shows I started my education. And as you can see, I showed where I studied. I showed when I studied. And I'm showing, starting with my academic achievements. I had an amazing GPA and a very good Dean's List honor something. Amazing, right? And because I also did something else, student union, I mentioned that. And I was in the venture capital club. Okay, so I can show here lots and lots of things which were non-academic, but are very important to show that I was involved. Now I went into my business business achievements. And in the professional section here, you can see I work for Ringo and I'm a senior business analyst and I lead a team of 3 and I already obtained 30% more summing, more clients, more saving. Okay, so a lot of numbers and quantifiable achievements. Okay, I obtained 30% more. More means, great. It's a good result. More than, was it 1 or 2? I don't know, but it was more. And you can see I put here top to bottom international marketing. That means I did something international. That's always good, and etc. etc. I'm not going to go into each bullet because it's very individual for you. There's lots of examples on our website. Check us out, aringo.com. Lots of CV and essay examples. If I continue into the community experience, so as you can see here, the business clinic, what that is, and I did some kind of community activity. And you might see I added here China, another international place, and I led the team. Great, because I did that. I didn't do that professionally, so maybe I did that in my community experience. And also in the additional information, as you can see, I played the guitar and I traveled to lots of countries and things like that. So that's a very good CV and very good example of how I managed to show you I have international experience, I have leadership experience, even if it wasn't in the professional experience, it was also in this case. Now, I did promise you that there might be some mistakes in this CV. And let's concentrate on this page. I don't care about the actual content, and please don't tell me the business clinic is a good place or bad place, but I actually put here quite a few formatting mistakes. And as you probably know, looks matter. So this is an interaction session. I'm going to drink my coffee. You can start writing in the chat. Interactive session. If you can spot any formatting mistakes, I can sing you a song. La 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 la. No, I won't sing you a song. Can you spot the formatting mistakes? Little hint, there's more than 10 here. There's so many formatting mistakes just on this page. This is your time. Can you spot any formatting mistakes? I will give you another 30 seconds. If you're not watching this live, please pause so you don't see the answers on the right. They're going to come in soon. Can you spot any? Okay, one's coming in. I'm not going to read them out yet. If you see any formatting mistakes, start telling me them. Okay, guys, they're starting to come in. Very good. You're starting to spot some nice things. Wow, even some of the small things. Okay, very good. Okay, be more specific. Someone mentioned alignment. What's the problem with alignment? Another 10 seconds. Come on, you can do it. Wow, nice one. You really spotted the nice little ones. Very good. Okay, so you're starting to spot everything. And correct. Correct. So you're starting to spot. I'm going to actually show you all the issues. I'll give you another 5 seconds because I can see the answers are starting to come in. So I hope this was a bit more challenging than what was the first question? Which application is the longest in the world? Yeah, that was a bit less challenging. I hope this was a bit more. Okay. So let me go into the actual mistakes, okay? So I think you've managed to find most of them, not all of them, unfortunately. Okay, I'm starting to show you them in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I was waiting for one more person, but okay. Actually, there's a mistake in every single line. Okay, nearly. Well, I put my name in the right way. So what do you think about this line? It's a bit strange, no? You see, I started with to separate between the different, phone number, email, and my address. So I used I don't even know what you call this line, upwards line and backslash line. But from some kind of reason, I decided to use two different lines. It's a bit two different symbols. Bit strange. So someone did mention the community experience isn't in bold. By the way, no one said it has to be in bold. It's just a bit weird that the additional information I decided to put in bold. Okay. By the way, I didn't trick you. I could have tricked you more. And I could have changed the font sizes. Yesterday I received, I think it was, don't tell anyone, the worst CV I've ever received in terms of formatting. And there was font size 10.5, 11, 12, 14, and 16. So that's, yes, 5 different font sizes in one CV. Alignment was all over the place. Bold, yes, bold, not bold. Now, there's no right or wrong. You decide if the section should be with a line underneath or not with a line underneath, in bold or not in bold, but be consistent. And someone said there's the 2 dots here. I don't think I marked that separately, but in additional information, 2 dots. That's nice, but at least be consistent. Oh, yeah. So if you can see, China is aligned nice, or is aligned to the right, but 2016 current is a bit more to the left. Very annoying. Align that all the way to the right. This is a hard one, so no one saw this one. Again, maybe you weren't looking at the text, but there's no rule of how to mention money, but be consistent. You can't mention $20M in one place and 15 million USD in another. Okay, this is a formatting issue, or call it however you want, but it's a consistency issue. Okay, you have to be consistent. You can't write one time one thing and then another place another. Yes, you see alignments. We've touched this before. So as you can see, 2007, 2008 should go a bit more to the right. But also here, this my second job, whatever that was, a Ringo Youth, it should be aligned to the business clinic, right? It should be aligned. And here I decided to put 3 spaces in front of a Ringo Youth with no reason. Someone did mention the full stop. Did you like that? So there was a full stop in one bullet with no reason, because I didn't put a full stop in other bullets. By the way, should you put a full stop at the end of bullet? Maybe, okay, but at least be consistent and do that everywhere. More alignment issues and additional information. Why are these bullets more to the right than the other bullets? No reason at all. And in the last bullet, again, there's an alignment issue. And I decided again to write in words 34 countries, but then I was in Singapore for the digit 3 years. So there were a million issues in this little page, or part of the CV. Looks matter, okay? So that was the resume section, but don't forget, it's not just the content, it's how your resume looks. I would say the resume is the most important document in your application. Get it perfect. Next. Sorry. This is what it looked like before, right? Like this, very ugly with all the alignments. And I did fix the alignments here. Wow, what a beautiful resume. Now we can actually read it and see if the content is good or not. Okay, but I think you can see, yes, you can see. It's aligned and the bold and additional information came off, and there's no dots and spare things, and the alignments are amazing. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Let's keep going. There's another interactive section in the letters of recommendation. Start thinking who your best recommender is. That's a little tip for the next interaction session. Okay, now I'm actually going to go through the actual essays. It's very, very long. I apologize. If this is too much information, take 10 minutes break. As you can see, we have various essays with various word count lengths. So the essays are between 500 words and 100 words. Most of the essays are 400 words. This is the longest application. And if you're doing several applications, if you're applying to Insead, HEC Paris, and IMD in Lausanne, definitely, and if you're doing it all in the same deadline, I definitely think there's an advantage to start with Ncaa. It's the longest. It makes sense to start with the largest application, and it's definitely the longest. Right, I'm gonna go into each of these essays. So let's kick in. Again, this is the full-time MBA essays. If you're registering to the executive MBA, to the Master in Management, the essays are different. Don't listen to me. This is a full-time MBA presentation. Okay, so I'm not reading them because we're going to go into each of the essays. Some general tips on how to answer the essay. Very, very silly comment, but a very important one. Make sure you are answering the question. You will be surprised how many essays I've read. Well, you won't be surprised. I read maybe 20, 30 essays more, 50 essays a day. So I read a lot of essays. You will be surprised how many essays don't actually answer the question. And if you were asked what your short-term, long-term career goals are, it's not very clever to talk about your biggest failure or achievement. That wasn't the question. Maybe your biggest failure helped you discover and helped you think what your career goals should be. That's fine. But make sure you're answering the question. Don't go over the word limit. I know you can, and if you try and copy 450 words into a 400 word box, it will usually work. Don't do that, because when you submit Ncaa receiver application, they know how to do word count, and it says 436 words in a 400 word essay. It's just annoying. So as an interviewer, and as someone that used to read applications for the school, for London Business School, I less like that. So try not to go over the word count, but use the word count if you need. It's fine. 400 words is a lot of words. Obviously, there's a lot about being amazing, but telling the school about your achievements, etc. I know a lot of people are modest and just don't, they want to say, let my achievements speak for themselves. And you're right, but still, if the school asks you what's your biggest achievement, you have to talk about an achievement. If the school asks you, describe your day-to-day activities, whatever, we'll talk about the essays. This has to look good. So try and show that you're a strong candidate. Obviously, do research, okay? And try and mention a club, try and mention a professor, try and mention the school. Try and show the school that you really want Insead and you haven't copied this essay from Harvard. Remember what the schools were looking for. Remember what the school's looking for. It's looking for international prospects. If you have some, mention it. It's looking for academics. If you have some, mention it. It's looking for you to contribute to the community. You can't mention that because you haven't attended Insead yet, but you can mention your past. If you contributed to the community in the past, you can definitely mention that. That's it. Let's go into your essays. So Insead's first 3 essays are to do with your job currently. The first one just says very clearly, summarize your current job. Okay, this is, I like to call it technical essay. Okay, just need to describe what I do and try and quantify things as much as possible. You remember, I lead a team of 5 people. I lead a team of 5 people. The project is worth $20 million. I work with Amazon and Nike. I project manager the entire project. I'm in charge of. I report to. Okay, that's the kind of quantifiable things that you can mention. Obviously, keeping in mind all the things that we know Insead are looking for: international stuff, fast track promotions if you receive them, very famous clients, things like that. So this is quite a technical essay. And a lot of times they ask you, the essay is, what do you do? What's your job? So of course you focus on I do this and this. I do that and that. Okay, that's the kind of job. But of course, We also want to use the word we because you don't want to take the credit of a team. Okay, so I lead a team of 5. During the capacity, we do this and that. Okay, but I'm the leader. Of course, we is I as well. Okay, so that's the kind of job description essay. It's quite straightforward. And don't forget to push yourself. It's absolutely fine, to explain that you're very good professionally, you were promoted very fastly. And that's it. That's the first. You see, 1 out of 7. We did it so quickly. Okay, second essay is if you were to remain in your current company. A lot of people ask me about this essay. They don't exactly understand the topic of the essay. The essay topic is very simple. Ncaa is saying, let's say you don't go for an MBA, you don't leave to Ncaa, you just stay in your current job. What's going to happen? Without knowing you, I'm already telling you what you're going to say. I'm very high, sorted after, the management loves me. And if I stay in my current job, guess what? I'm going to get promoted. I'm going to do a great job at my job. Okay, so be very clear. Okay, I'm going to stay at my job. Probably in 6 to 24 months, depends on your job, I will be promoted to the next level. Today, I'm a project manager. I'll be promoted to a senior project manager. Today, I'm an owner of I'm a junior consultant. I'll be promoted to a consultant. Okay, this will require for me to take an internal course, or this will require for me to keep doing a fantastic job and be a top performer like I've been doing. But again, this is such a straightforward question. Stay at your current job, at your current employer. Now think of the next level. Again, there's many cases that this doesn't work for people. I understand that, but that's like a personal issue. For example, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're the CEO of a company, yes, you can't think of a promotion, but you can think, okay, I'm going to expand the company and make it bigger to a new geography or to a new product. Okay, so this is very straightforward, what responsibilities you would do, what would your job title be, etc. So this is a very straightforward essay. Okay, essay number 3, full description of your career. That means what have you done to date. Now, remember, they have your resume. They know what you've done, okay? So you can't now go into, after university, I was recruited to Amazon. No, they want to understand why you took these jumps, why you went to Amazon after university. I studied engineering, but I actually got interested in business analytics, and that's why I went to do consulting for McKinsey. Okay, so you explain the move. And in your resume, you only have McKinsey. There's no way to explain why you chose that. Same thing, even with your academics. Okay, you can explain why you chose your degree. Okay, so that's a bit more about why, less about the actual details that they have in your resume. Of course, if you've done many jumps, or you moved from one employer to another, or you've been promoted in the same employer, you want to explain what you learned in each of these stops. Okay, so at the beginning, I started as a consultant and I learned a lot of problem solving techniques. I improved my business foundation. Then when I was promoted to a senior consultant, I started having more client interactions. I really enjoyed that and decided to move to the marketing side of the company. Okay, that's an example of a market of some kind of career progress and how I explain the various moves. And of course, you have to kind of think in reflection about this. Okay, like I was explaining. I started as a consultant, but then I learned a lot, and I actually thought it would be best for me to move to the client side of things. Okay, so you're kind of reflecting this. It's okay. Maybe you didn't make the right decision straight out of university, but then you learned what you really liked and you progressed, etc. Right, those were the job descriptions. And now we're moving into the short and long-term career aspirations. This is also a very, very popular essay. It's the last job description essay. When I say popular, I think you would see this kind of essay in nearly every business school. Okay, nearly every business school will ask you what are your short-term, long-term career aspirations. And here, again, it's no different than any other business school. I think you should close your eyes and try and imagine where you want to work in 20 years. Like, what's your dream job? And then maybe in 10 years. And then think, okay, how can I make that happen? Now, remember, It has to be some kind of progress. It has to kind of rely on what you've done in the past and why Ncaa will help you get to where you want to get in the future. I would keep it in line with Ncaa recruiters, with Ncaa's geography. Okay, and for example, today I'm a waiter in a restaurant. I really want to be an astronaut at NASA, so I want an Ncaa MBA. Okay, so that's probably the worst, right? Career essay I've heard of. Yeah, I've just made it up, but it's quite bad. But like we said before, I'm a waiter at a restaurant. Then I was promoted to a shift manager. I was really working on the P&L and the marketing of the restaurant. And I want an MBA from Insead because when I finished the degree, I want to open a chain of restaurants in Singapore, which is another reason why I want to go to Insead. Okay, so now that's like I connected my past, I connected Insead, I connected my future in a very good way. And those were the job essays. There is an optional essay if you currently don't work. Again, and this is if you don't work, let's say, more than 2 months. You need to explain this. Ncaa don't really like unemployed people. Of course, if there is some kind of reason, maternity leave, COVID, layoffs, or something like that, or just that you're taking a break after 8 years of working to take the Gmat for 2 months, that's fine. But probably, it's a good idea to explain it. That's it. We only have 3 more mandatory essays. Okay, but this is a very, very, very difficult essay. One of the most difficult essays I've seen, which is give a candid description of yourself. And Ncaa kind of wants to understand who you are, which is annoying because until now in the resume, I told you I don't need to go into this too much. And all I want to do is like say, led 2 people, have this and this achievement. My career goal is to be an astronaut. Great, but it doesn't really discuss who I am. And now Ncaa do want to understand who you are. I put here like what makes you tick. And you can connect this also together with your career goals. For example, I'm an accountant and I have an accounting background and I do audit for big Fortune 500 companies. But I'm also in my spare time, I love sports and I run and I love gadgets and I buy every single gadget possible. And in the future, I want to, I don't know, be a business manager in a big sports wear company like Fitbit, new whatever smart watches. So I've connected a bit of my past, not much of the accounting, but a lot of my hobbies, and that's who I am, with my future. So even this kind of connects everything together. They want to see who you are, what you do in your spare time, why did you choose certain decisions, maybe a failure. Okay, they really want to check all these things out. Obviously, don't go too much into your weaknesses. Okay, so you need to show lots and lots of good things and maybe 1 or 2 weaknesses which you can overcome with with Ncaa with time. Very difficult essay, I admit, but if you manage to describe who you are in a good way, they'll like this essay. Now, again, I put here kind of what most candidates will do, and I think it's a good thing. Okay, you need to kind of talk a bit about yourself and interpersonal skills, like how do you work with a team, different things like that, your desires maybe, where you work, who you work with, etc. It's very important. I want to kind of read your essay and understand who you are. Okay, a bit more about this essay. If you can, and it's not so easy, you can connect this to things at Insead. For example, you can say, and at university, I used to help a lot of the people that wanted to get into consulting develop and prepare for their interviews. How did I do this? We called alumni and they came and helped us prepare for cases for consulting firms. I plan to do the same in the Insead Consulting Club. Okay, so I've done research on Insead and I plan to be very active in a community by doing something that I've already done in my undergraduate degree. So this is another way of showing what you've done in the past, but kind of connecting it to what Insead are looking for. And of course, read the essay again and again and again. And you try and ask yourself, is this someone interesting or is this just someone boring? Okay, and like I told you before, the other essays are about boring stuff. Okay, I work here and here. I made this decision. I made this decision. Great, great, great. But this is more about you. And funnily enough, the more senior people I've seen professionally, the more issues they've had with these softer essays. Okay, how do they describe themselves? Not an easy essay. Okay, we're nearly there. Describe an achievement and a failure. And how did this impact you? Very difficult essay with the failure, very easy with the achievement. And what you can remember is, again, you can focus on your achievement. Don't have to focus at the beginning on the failure. And you can write a lot about the achievement, I don't know, 80% of the essay. And you can kind of reflect on this achievement and this happened. And I did something very well, and there was some kind of quantifiable result at the end, etc. So very good. Again, you can pause this presentation and just read through the bullet. I'm just trying to give you a bit beyond. When you talk about the failure, own it. Okay, make sure you're the boss of the failure. You came to the company 2 years ago. You were very new. You were given a lot of tasks, and you focused on the important ones, but you missed the deadlines with the little ones. And your manager actually told you that your time management wasn't good. Okay, but you own it. You're telling it as it was, but it was 2 years ago. Since then, you've learned a lot, and you've read books about time management. You've actually asked your boss to give you feedback, and you also hope that Ncaa's project management course will help you with time management in the future. So first of all, I showed this was a long time ago. It was 2 years ago. I've already improved, and I hope Ncaa will improve me to be a better person in this failure. So I did that in 70 words. Now let's focus the rest of the essay on your big achievement, not just on the failure. Right. I think this is the last motivation essay. And this is also quite a tough one. And it's how this achievement or failure impacted the relationship with others. Quite difficult. And we wrote here, don't neglect the last two parts. Again, it's the same essay. Sorry. But what we wrote here is don't neglect the last part of the essay, which is how it impacted your relationship with others. Okay, and this is very important. For example, if my manager gave me a task, and like I said, I missed the deadlines, but then I went to him for feedback. He really appreciated the feedback, and since then I go to him twice a week, so we have shorter intervals with our status discussions. And it's actually, I think I've gained from this a lot, and I've gained his trust. So this shows how it impacted my relationship with my manager. It can impact your relationship with the client, with the team. So that's a very, very important. And again, remember, an MBA is a lot about work, a lot about soft skills with other people, a lot about how to work with international people. And it's very important to show all the aspects, not just the professional aspects of, I made a sale worth $2 million. Right, enough for a bit. This is the last essay, which I actually like, and it's kind of your extra professional activities. And this is a way to show all the things which are not in your professional activity and are not in your education. And again, it can show that you're fun, that you do maybe things with groups, that you run a marathon. Maybe you want to be part of the Insead running team, so you can connect it to Insead. Maybe you can connect it to the why, a specific career goal, because it's part of your hobbies, giving back to the community, etc., etc. So you can try and showcase here things that can supplement missing details in your other application, areas in your application. That's it. There's another little optional essay. Okay, if you've managed to get so far, let's talk about the letters of recommendation. I just put here, it's not mandatory to answer an optional essay, especially not an Ncaa after you've had 7 essays. Okay, so I promised an interactive session, but I've been talking for an hour. So let's imagine that you need to choose 2 recommenders for Insead. Who would you choose? You can start writing. What I want you to choose is number 1. Number 1 is my best recommender, and number 2 is my second best recommender. You only need 2. I'll start reading them, but you only need 2. I'll read them from bottom to top. So 1 is my mom. Okay, she really, really, really knows me very well. Okay, by the way, she thinks I'm very good. I'm a lovely boy, in her words. Another good recommender is the CEO of the company. He doesn't really know me, but he's very senior. Okay. Another person is my boss. He's not very senior. He's a team manager, but he knows me very well. He works with me on a daily basis. My fourth option, so again, my mom is number one, CEO is number two, my boss number three. My fourth option is someone very, very senior. I've never worked with him. He's like a minister in the government or something, but he's a friend of the family. My uncle knows him very well. And he'll write whatever I want, so great. So he knows me as a good friend of the family, and he's very, very senior. My fifth option is my university professor. Again, he knows me for my academics, and I wrote a very good thesis. And I used to sit first in the class, and I used to raise my hand and answer some questions, so he knows me very well. And my last person is my school teacher. Again, this was quite a long time ago, but she's taught hundreds, if not thousands, of children, and I was top of her class, so she remembers me very well when I was 16. So these are my six options. Again, my mom number one, CEO number two, my boss number three, the minister number four, university professor number five, school teacher number six. I need two of these. Who should I choose? There's one. I'm drinking my coffee. There's one answer so far. I'm looking for more. You know all the answers. I've noticed that already. Okay. One. Let's wait for two more answers. Should I choose my boss? Should I choose my mom? The school teacher? Okay, I can already see seven answers, and all seven have chosen the boss. I can already tell you that. As a second recommender, there's a bit of debate. Okay, should it be the university professor? What else? Someone chose, I think, the minister. Yeah, university professor and the boss. Okay, well, first of all, this is very, very difficult. Okay, and a lot of people don't have recommenders at all. Okay, and they come to me and they say, listen, university, no professors know me. I went to university, I got very good grades, but I didn't have any interaction with professors, so that won't work. My past job, I went to a job, I actually didn't leave in a very good terms with them, because I got an offer from another company, and I left, and they weren't happy, so I don't really want to use them. And my current company, I don't really want to go to my boss, because if he knows that I'm leaving, I won't get a bonus, he will fire me, I won't get promoted. So I don't really have a professional person, I don't really have an academic person, I don't really volunteer anywhere, I don't have my mom, well, that's not good, obviously. So what do I do? Okay, and to them I answer, actually, that's a big, big problem. Insead will look at your resume, will look at your essays, but will give a very big weight to your two recommenders. Now, they obviously know you're choosing recommenders who will write a good recommendation about you. That's obvious. But again, they will read these recommendations, and they will give a high weight to these recommendations. So you need to preferably, they need to be professional. Okay, preferably. And therefore, in this specific case, it was a trick question, I know. The boss for sure. Okay. I can tell you that if you ask Insead, they'll actually tell you the boss, and if you don't have a previous boss, so maybe the boss of the boss. Or maybe someone who works with you. I don't know, not a colleague, but some kind of project manager that manages you in a matrix way. Someone from a work environment. What they don't like, obviously, they don't like family. Okay, that's an obvious. So we can rule out. Sorry, I didn't do exes, but let's rule out the mom. School teacher, well, that's not relevant, right? That's from 20 years ago when I was 16, whatever, forget that. They less like famous people that haven't worked with you. I've seen these before. I'm not joking, Minister of Agriculture give a recommendation to someone and say, I've known Shimri since he was 18. He's such a good boy, but what does he know about me on a day-to-day work perspective? Nothing. So that's less good as well. So actually, we left with three. Yes, we left with the boss. We said that's great. Who should be the second one? Is it the CEO that doesn't really know me but kind of heard about me on a day-to-day perspective, or professor? Both aren't great, so choose one of those in this specific case. But in a better case, choose your manager and a previous manager. That's the best you can do. If you can't do that, your manager and your manager's manager. If you can't do that, if you're an entrepreneur, big problem. Okay, choose maybe an investor, so kind of a manager, or someone from your board of directors. But again, family or a partner or someone which is on your level, is like a colleague, is more of an issue. And also university recommendations are less preferred for MBA degrees. Again, if you're a TA, teacher assistant, that's something else because you were working for someone at university. But keep those in mind. Very, very difficult. Okay, former boss or mentor. Yeah, someone wrote that. Great. I mean, that's the right answer. Okay, so how do I write the recommendations? By the way, we're nearly at the end of the presentation. It's the last section. I think we have another 5 minutes, and then I'll answer all the questions you've written. Are we for time? Great. So you need 2 recommendations. We said big preference for direct managers, current boss, previous boss, even if they're not so senior. Okay, obviously choose them very carefully. They have, people that want to write good things about you. That's important. And maybe you can strategize, who's going to write what. Okay, so 2 years ago, I was quite junior, but sorry, 2 years ago, I got my first promotion, but 4 years ago, I was quite junior, but I was amazing and they were very happy. So I'll choose someone from 4 years ago when I just came to the company and someone from 2 years ago, which gave me the promote. Okay, try and strategize what they will write, which cases they're going to give. And if you use your boss and your boss's boss or something like that, it's very important that it won't be from the same period, because if they're going to give the same examples, okay, what was your biggest accomplishment? And they'll give the exact same example. And when did they give you negative feedback? They'll give the same example. That's not so good. Okay, so I wrote here, perfect recommendation would be a work setting, and it's subjective, unlike your essays, which are objective. I led a team of 5 and I sold 20% more than I was expected. That's objective. Here it's subjective. I managed 10 people. He is the best. I've dealt with all different things. He learned faster than others, whatever. So that's subjective. And of course, lots and lots of examples. And I wrote here a tip, help them to help you. I think that's obvious. You don't want to choose someone that doesn't remember you. You want to choose recommenders who know what they're saying. And if they don't, you can actually tell them, listen, I've chose you for Ncaa recommendation. If you're asked for an example, I hope you remember that 2 years ago, I got from the CEO a special merit. Okay, so try and help them remember the good things about you. That's my stuff about recommendations. So there's a whole other session about the Insead interview, and obviously I can't go through everything today. I think I published a couple of months ago on Gmat Club how to ace the Insead interview. There's 2 interviews, and just my first tip is just read your application very, very well. Know what you wrote in all the essays. That will probably cover 50% of your interviews. But the other 50% we'll have to discuss another time. So that was it. Okay, so that was my long presentation. I've been talking for an hour and 15, but now I'm going to talk a bit more, and I'm going to go through all the questions that were asked. Obviously, I'm going to skip all the answers that you gave to the questions, and try and answer all your questions. And I hope Gmat Club will help me actually highlight some of the questions on the screen, and then we can go through. So I'm literally going through all the questions. You can write more and more questions. You can just type them on YouTube. I'll answer them. Again, if you want to drop off now, thank you. I've been Shimri. Feel free to send me your Gmat, your profile, if you want some kind of help with your application. This is my email, and good luck to everyone. Okay, I'm going into the application. So I think this question was like the first slide I gave, and I didn't want to answer it, Deepak, because I felt like let's talk about the entire application. I discussed about the Ringo and how wonderful we are, and with our 80% success rate at Insead. And the question was, okay, why, these people that got in, did they have any, different personality, or what was the character of these candidates? And their answer is, there was no specific formula for these people. Okay, so I have had lawyers, accountants, consultants, entrepreneurs, people without undergraduate degrees, Americans, Indians, okay, Jordanians. There's women, men, etc. No, etc. There. Those are the genders, but uh, Ncaa are looking for a diverse class, and they definitely don't want to see homogenic application from the same type of person. So if someone tells you, "Oh, I've heard Ncaa doesn't recruit X," that's wrong. And if they say, "I've heard Ncaa only recruits X," that's wrong as well. They're looking for a diverse class. So whoever thinks they're from a wrong background, that's wrong already. But if you come from a very common or overpopulated background, yes, you should try and excel in certain factors like GMAT, or like have a very good application. Okay, so I'm going through the more questions. That was Deepak's question at the beginning of the session. Okay, so someone asked me about their chances, and okay, I'll just read the fantastic. So Insead, so let me explain. There's something called the GMAT. I think most of you know that's a psychometric test that all business schools accept. There's a GRE test, which is a very similar to the GMAT. And the GRE is just conducted by another company. It's accepted for most of the master programs in the US and the business schools. Insead and most of the other business schools in the world are indifferent to GMAT versus GRE. But there's another test, it's quite new, it's about 7 years old, and it's called the executive assessment. It's mainly for executive MBAs. There are several full-time MBAs that accept this test, but it's mainly for executive MBAs, and Insead does not accept the EA for the full-time MBA. It does accept the EA for the executive MBA, but not for the full-time MBA. Next question. Okay, so we can GMAT Club. Thank you, putting them on screen, so that helps. My GMAT score can influence the recruitment process with consulting firms even after graduation. Okay, I get this question quite a lot, and specifically in consulting firms, post your MBA or during your MBA, they might ask you again, so you're ready at Insead, and McKinsey are asking you, what is your GMAT score? That's correct. They sometimes ask, specifically consulting firms, but still, I'm not sure how this question is relevant. Okay, and I understand you want to, you want to say, okay, maybe I should maximize my GMAT score. And the answer is yes, you should, because the difficult part about Insead is getting into Insead. Okay, you will find a job afterwards. Let's focus about that. Let's focus on getting you into Insead. And if you can score 760, but have scored 720, yes, improve your GMAT. Nothing to do with the consulting firm's recruitment, more to do with your chances of getting into Insead. So definitely maximize your score. It's important also to get into Insead, but maybe also for consulting firms later. I think that's less important, but also. Okay, someone's asking, do they need the Ielts for Insead if they have an undergraduate in English? So first of all, look at the Insead website, just to make sure. But generally speaking, if you have an undergraduate in English and it was taught, I can't remember if it's more than 80% or 100% in English, usually you don't need to take the TOEFL or the IELTS. Just make sure that I'm correct. In most business schools, some business schools will still ask you to take it if it wasn't in an English-speaking country like the UK or Australia, but most business schools like Insead, if your undergraduate was in English, that's good enough. This is a very good question. When's the cutoff? So let's Insead in total has just, I think it's around 30% acceptance rate. Quite a high acceptance rate. I mean, good numbers. Because the class is very big. So a lot of people apply to Insead, but it's a very big class. Let's say it's 25% just for the math for this discussion. And the cutoff is 50% receive an interview and 50% pass the interview. Okay, so the answer is it's equal. The cutoff is 50% will receive an interview, and only 50% of that 50% will pass the interview, and there is your 25% acceptance rate. Definitely. So someone's asking, is a great GMAT, does it offset anything else, but of course your academics? And their answer is yes. The GMAT will offset your academics. And for example, I work with a lot of candidates who have very mediocre academics. In a scale of 4, it can be 2.8, 2.7. But they, I asked them, so were you top 10% of the class? They say no. Were you top 20%? They say maybe top 50, which isn't the top, but never mind. But then if they score a 730, well, they have 20 points higher than that average at Insead. So that can offset an average academic record. And also, great, anything can offset anything else. Great professional experience can offset a mediocre GMAT, it can offset a lousy academics. But keep in mind the other way around. The GMAT is one big factor. And I gave you an example before of people with very low GMATs that got in. So this last year, I said I had a 620 and a 640 that got into Insead. Again, they had a very unique background, very special professional experience, minority in some ways background. So keep in mind, again, it can offset, but just watch it. If Insead's average GMAT is 711, you would have to have an amazing profile to get in with something below 670. Okay, and vice versa. If Insead's, I don't know, if your GPA is 2.5, wow, you're gonna have to have a very high GMAT to offset that. So just keep in mind again, how bad were you in something specific? Hope that answers. Wow, that's a very tough question. Okay, so after how many years do you think about the MBA can give you the most? And I know that Insead search for diversity, correct? However, it seems that the vast majority are from MBB. That's correct and not correct. So let's start with the first question. I don't know the answer. The answer is up to you. If you've had 4, 5, 6 years of experience, you've already had 2 promotions, you're doing your 3rd position now, you have a GMAT, you want the international experience now, you want to do the change, this is the right time for you. That can be after 3, 4 years of experience. That can be after 8, 9 years of experience. The best, somewhere in the middle. That's why the average is 5.5 or 6 years, okay? Somewhere in the middle, but it can be 2 years before or 2 years after. Correct. Well, I'm not exactly sure if you're talking pre-MBA or post-MBA. A lot of consultants go to Insead, and I can also explain why. A lot of the top MBB consulting firms, MBB stands for McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, so the top 3 consulting firms. A lot of the consultants get funded. They're sponsored students. That means you work in McKinsey 21 months, then you go and you do your MBA, and then you go back to McKinsey. And lucky for those candidates, McKinsey pay for their MBA. So they're now done their nearly 2 years in their McKinsey as a consultant, and they have 2 options. They can go to NYU for 2 years, or they can go to Insead for 10 months, and then they're going to return to McKinsey anyway for 2 years, or for however long they need to return to McKinsey for McKinsey to pay for them. And then they say, actually, I'm just going to do the shortest degree, because I know I'm not looking for a job. I just want to finish with the whole process as quickly as possible. So then they go to Insead, and that's why a lot of the Insead students are consultants, because they already have a job at the end and they want to go back to the job, as fast as possible. And there's a bit of a vicious cycle here, and that's why also a lot of the consulting firms recruit from Insead, etc. So I agree, Insead is still very, very, very big in consulting for your post-MBA, but still, it's very diverse. And if you go to Insead admissions and you tell them you're just consulting, they'll be offended. They'll say, "What? We're technology, entrepreneurship, marketing, consumer goods, and luxury brands. That's our specialty." So good question, but again, there is a higher rate of consultants coming into Insead and going out from Insead, higher rate than other business schools. I agree, but still, there's everything at Insead. Out of 1,000 students, there's really, literally everything. Okay, question from Laya. Is Insead a good place for someone? Yes, first of all, yes, it's a good place for someone who's planning to build their own startup right after graduation. Has someone done that? Yes. So again, I don't know how many stats there are about this, but there's definitely growing percentages of students who are going directly into entrepreneurship at the end of business school and at the end of Insead. And if you talk about this to Insead, they will love this. I just have to, I just want you to keep in mind one thing. Insead really care about their ranking. Okay, as you saw, they're ranked very high. They want to keep the ranking. And one of the factors in the ranking is how many students found a job after 3 months. And the second factor of the ranking is what was their salary. And these two factors are like 40% of the ranking. So NCAD just wants to make sure you're employable. Again, opening a startup is fine, but they don't want you to be like unemployed or something. So just make sure to mention why you want to open a company. Is it going to happen in the short term? And why you think you can do it and how you'll get money or invested, etc. But definitely, this is a more and more popular route. I've seen this before, and it's great. And if you mention it to the school and you have a good reason, it will work. Okay, guys, we're nearly there, nearly at the end of the questions. If you have any more, ask them. But I think we have time for another 2 or 3 questions. Okay, so this is a problem, Rajiv, and we discussed this. If you have 13, 14 years of experience, okay, um, yes, it will be an issue. Again, you can go on a Ringer website under the Executive MBA menu. You will actually see some article I wrote, MBA over 30, and I recommend their various full-time programs for candidates with more than 10 or 12 years of experience. Unfortunately, Ncaa is not one of them because from various reasons. But there are different programs both in the US and in London, which are more fit probably for someone with 13 or 14 years of experience. Again, if you have your CV and your GMAT, etc., send me a line and to my email, and I'll send you a list of programs which probably fit you a bit better. Okay, this is also a question I get quite a lot. Is it true that a candidate from country A will be compared to a country will be compared to other candidates from the same country? And the answer is yes, it's true. Okay, so Insead won't say this, and they probably don't have a bucket that they have to fill in 26 German engineers and 46 Indian lawyers. But on the other hand, let's say I get 6,000 applications. There's no way I'm gonna and 3,000 of them are from the US. No way I'm gonna accept 1,000 US candidates. Okay, so it makes sense. They want a diverse class. They want 80 countries. That means they probably won't accept more than a number, and the number is usually 1 digit from one country. Again, if it's a very big country like India or the US, it might be double digits, but small double digits, so maybe 15 or 20 candidates per school, per stream. So that's correct. And again, just to be honest, if you come from an overrepresented background, okay, yes, your stats, your GMAT, your GPA, your application should probably be above the average versus someone who goes in the diversity ticket because they come from an underrepresented country. Okay, so I think this is the last question. What about someone with no degree? What are the chances to get into Ncaa? Okay, so I've mentioned this at the beginning. I do have 2 people every year that get into Ncaa without an undergraduate degree. These are very, very special people. I just want to mention this in advance. And last year, I actually worked with someone very special who didn't manage to get into Ncaa. So that's, it just shows that it's hard. It's very hard to get into Ncaa without an undergraduate degree, but it's doable. If you sold your startup at $30 million to Microsoft and work as the CEO of your startup now, or as deputy to Microsoft something, or you're a consultant at Deloitte for 5 years without an undergraduate degree, that's a good example of someone who can get in. If you don't have those things, it's going to be very difficult. Okay, I think enough Thank you very much. I've been talking for a lot, but I really enjoyed it and really good questions. If you're not watching this live, you can skim through the thing a bit quicker maybe. Check us out on aringo.com. Thank you, Gmat Club, for this opportunity, and hope to see you in our future videos. Thank you. Bye-bye.